The history of the United States would be very different without the contribution of Asian Americans. From hard labor building the transcontinental railroad linking our coast, to the academic contributions ranging from philosophy to medicine, Asian Americans have been an integral part of making our country great. The first Asian to become a naturalized U.S. citizen was Japanese-born Hikozo Hamada in 1858. The first official recorded history of Asian Americans fighting on behalf of the United States occurred in 1815 during the War of 1812. Even though there are approximately 200 Chinese Americans living in the eastern United States by 1861, 58 of them fought in Civil War. Because of their previous experiences at sea, many of them served in U.S. Navy. Corporal Joseph Pierce, who as a child was brought to the United States from China by his adopted father, fought in several major campaigns of the war, including Antietam and Gettysburg. There were at least 5 Asian Americans that have been identified as fighting for the Confederacy. Even though the 1862 Act of Congress promised citizenship to any honorably discharged foreign veteran, Chinese Americans were denied that right because an earlier law allowed the naturalization of white European immigrants only. There were Chinese like Edward Day Kohota, who not only served in Civil War but stayed in the army after the war for 20 years, but he was denied citizenship. Exclusions like this were in lockstep with the Chinese Exclusion Act passed by Congress in 1882, which until 1943 made it technically illegal for Chinese to become citizens, although the law was inconsistently enforced. In-Shun Wang received a nomination to West Point due in part to the sponsorship of America's open door policy, reparation from the Opium Wars, and the Boxer Indemnity Scholarship Program. This special act of Congress allowed Wang to arrive at West Point in summer of 1905 as one of the 2 Chinese cadets selected to join the class of 1909. In 1916, a large number of Chinese Mexicans assisted the U.S. in Mexico during the punitive expedition to capture Pancho Villa for his attack on Columbus, New Mexico. Despite the provision of the Chinese Exclusion Act, Pershing sought permission for these people to be allowed to settle in the United States. A total of 527 eventually entered the country, settling mostly in San Antonio. They later became known as Pershing's Chinese. When the United States entered World War I in 1917, Asian Americans were drafted as non-whites, filling the National Army ranks. Although the majority of these men did not see combat, several did. Private Thomas Mateo Claudio, who was the first and the only Filipino-American to die during the war. Claudio was killed at Chateau Thierry in 1918. Private Henry Chin of the celebrated Lost Battalion was also killed in 1918 during combat operation in the Aragon Forest. In 1934, Gordon Pei Chung-hoon became the first Asian American U.S. citizen to graduate from the Naval Academy. During World War II, he was awarded the Navy Cross and the Silver Star. He would retire as an admiral in 1959. After the U.S. entered the Second World War after Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, America drew upon all of its resources in men and material. On the 5th of June 1942, 1,400 Nisei of the Hawaiian National Guard shipped out from Hawaii, bound for Auckland. And on 12th June, after docking, they were formed into the 100 Infantry Battalion. Afterwards, all Japanese American men not already in the military were classified as enemy aliens. This policy was reversed in 1943. The 442nd Regiment was the most decorated unit for its size and length of the service in the history of American warfare. The 4,000 men who initially made up the unit in April 1943 had to be replaced nearly 3 times. In the end, more than 14,000 served in the 442nd, the nickname of which was Go for Broke. Between them, they were received 18,143 awards, including 9,485 Purple Hearts and 21 Medals of Honor. During World War II, Albert Lyman and his brother Charles became the first ethnic Hawaiian and first Asian Hawaiian Pacific Islanders to become general officers in 1942 and 1944. On the 25th of June 1950, North Korean communist soldiers invaded the South, triggering the Korean War. Asian Americans again answered the call of duty and defended South Korea against communist aggression. In direct action against the Chinese soldiers, Staff Sergeant Hiroshi Miyamura was responsible for more than 50 enemy kills with his machine gun and in close hand-to-hand combat before being wounded and captured by the enemy. He was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor in 1953. In one of the most turbulent times in U.S. history, Asian Americans answered the call for military service during the Vietnam War. Over 35,000 served in America's armed forces in this conflict. Eric Shinseki, the 34th Chief of Staff of the Army and the 7th Secretary of Veterans Affairs, served 2 tours in Southeast Asia where he was awarded 3 Bronze Stars for Valor and 2 Purple Hearts. Herbert Choi was the first person of Korean ancestry to be admitted to practice law in the United States and the first Asian American to serve as a United States federal judge. He was in the United States Army from 1942 to 1946 as member of Army's Judge Advocate General Corps. Asian Pacific Americans have made great contributions in science and inventions. Asian Americans have also made major contributions to the sports and entertainment landscape. Asian Pacific Americans in government service. The strength of our nation is its diversity, and that strength shows no better than the diversity in our armed forces. Lieutenant General Paul M. Nakasone, Army South Deputy Commanding General Brigadier General James Wong, Army South Commanding General Major General K.K. Chin.